Hi everyone, we're back with reJUVEnation, episode 6. My name is Monica, and I have Daniel here representing the Juventini. Why don't you let us know why Juve is for you? Explain the love story.
Yeah, pretty simple actually. I'm sure a lot of people have a similar story, but I was a young kid and my dad came home with the classic black and white striped kit. I was maybe 10, and I honestly I didn't even know much better at the time, but as I grew older, I remember I had the jersey and I just became more into it. There was no name on the back, but then eventually I got Del Piero on there, and it was one of my favorites for sure. And the classic black and white, you just can't not love it unless you're not a Juve fan, which is unfortunate.
Of course. And where are you from?
I'm from Toronto. I'm in Ontario, Canada. Represent the Canadian Juventini out there. And yeah, well, we're better than some of the Montreal ones. I'm not going to name names, but I'm sure they know who they are. But yeah, represent Canada, Toronto.
All right. Um, so as you know, we are facing off against Crotone tomorrow. You may also know this as well, that we're going into the match suffering 2 consecutive defeats, Napoli in Serie A and then Porto in the Champions League. And we are off first place by 11 points. Crotone also going into the match suffering a 2-1 loss to Sassuolo. So we'll see, I guess, how the game pans out. Pirlo, we'll start with him, and he did his pre-match conference today. So I want to start with one comment he made, saying that we analyzed the Porto game together, and we all know what we did wrong, so there wasn't a need to raise my voice after the game. He also alludes to the defeats from Napoli and Porto being different, referencing Napoli's inability to take a shot on goal. So I just want to know your point of view, contrasting the two defeats. I don't think that they're much different. Um, sure, in the Napoli game, I think we created a bit more than the Porto game, and Porto were able to punish us more in the open play, as opposed to Napoli. They caught a break with the penalty shot from Chiellini, but
Mhm.
I really feel like it's very similar. We didn't create much in both games, and both games we made stupid errors realistically. And so, what are your thoughts on Pirlo saying,
Yeah,
he?
I
Go
kind of
ahead.
see what he's saying. That they were, the way it went about was kind of different, but I think it both comes down to defensive. I wouldn't say disasters, but defensive lapses, I guess you want to call them. Like the penalty was a little unfortunate, but that's going to get called all the time now, especially with VAR. And in Porto, it was just like the defense was sleeping on the second goal. Started with that one, but and then Bentancur was just lazy with his pass. Like those two very avoidable goals, even the one against Napoli, very avoidable. And like you mentioned, there's just not enough creativity, not enough opportunities created going forward. And that recently looks like it's been an issue for us. We knew the midfield was going to be a little, hit or miss with what we got, but you expect the forwards to still get some goals. It's a little concerning, I think. So
Yeah, I agree. He's really like, since the Napoli game, he's really stuck to that, I guess, agenda that we deserved more from that game, but I still don't think that we did enough.
mhm.
And these mistakes in both games happened very early, uh, given enough time to turn the game around, and we still didn't have that urgency to do that. The next comment he made was, of course, about the derby, saying that he'll be watching the derby, and it's fundamental for them, but also for us, and that he hopes for a draw. So having, obviously, the derby has been played, um, and Inter beating both Lazio last week and now Milan. They have they're on a little bit of a roll, and it's an important role, and they play once a week, so the momentum, everything is in their favor.
Mhm.
But I just don't get this, like alluding to. I'm not sure if these comments were, actually made by Pirlo, but I saw something circulating today that Pirlo said, they're in favor to win, like they're playing once a week. I'm not sure if that's true or not that he actually said that, but I mean, you look at our results, and from the beginning of the season, all the points that we lost, that was due to us, and it was around the same time as Inter being involved in the Champions League as well, early on in the group stages. So, uh, I hate seeing Pirlo, like, because it just reminds me of Conte and how he always finds excuses. Um, and he's been kind of going down that road lately. Um, Speaking about like penalty shots that were ambiguous against us and for us that we didn't receive. Um, so what are your thoughts on him? Basically stating we hope for a draw and things like that.
Well, the draw thing, I think, we were all thinking about that, the same thing. I guess he maybe thought it was a little funny that he said it. I don't know. But yeah, I agree with some of the penalty calls that have been either against us and for us. And he's kind of, I don't know, maybe just didn't like them. I get that. And sure, some of them were soft, some of them weren't fair, but like as a coach, you don't really want to hear him say that. I think, um, as a professional, maybe as a player, I feel it's a little more acceptable than it is when a coach. When you're the coach, you lose, and you kind of just got to keep moving on with that. But like you said, it's kind of like a Conte or something like that. It's just maybe that's how he's used to, because Conte was his coach, and he's trying to follow in his footsteps. I don't know, but I think I think Pirlo needs to just kind of get everyone on the same boat, try to get some momentum back. Just they don't look like everyone's in sync. I know we have injuries and suspensions, but that's not an excuse. Every team goes through that phase as well. So um, tomorrow is going to be a big one for sure, even though it's Crotone, but it's still a big match, no doubt.
Well, to remind everyone, we did tie against Crotone first time around, and I just wanted to mention, I guess, where we lost points, mostly at the beginning of the season. So all before or by the month of November, it was 2-2 against Roma, 1-1 against Crotone, 1-1 against Verona, 1-1 against Lazio, 1-1 against Benevento, and then afterwards we continued 1-1 against Atalanta. Then we had our first loss 3-0 against Fiorentina, and then completely outclassed by Inter 2-0, and then our most recent against Napoli 1-0. So I bring those up because of this sort of agenda about Inter playing once a week, because all of those lost points, I guess, coincide with Ronaldo having COVID, and we looked like completely flat. Um, I'll mention it shortly, but in our last um, game against Crotone, we tied 1-1, and we had majority of the possession, and they even on top of that had better stats, so to speak, than us. More shots on target. Um, we suffered with the red card from Chiesa, but you know all of this possession, and I've said it so many times. I'm definitely ugly FC as opposed to sexy FC. Um, the results matter the most, and you can play with the ball all you want, but you know we haven't shown, like, we're sixth in Serie A with goals for and chances created. So I think that speaks volumes to all of these lost points at the beginning of the season, especially.
Mhm.
And I just hate, like I said, like Conte using excuses, and I think Pirlo needs to take some responsibility and accountability, as opposed to looking at other teams, trying to do us the favors. Um, I feel like Juventus is too big for that. I don't know if you have any other comments.
Yeah, it's like I can understand the draw against Roma or Atalanta. That was a pretty even, well fought game, even with Ronaldo missing the penalty late against Atalanta there. But like you mentioned, the ones against Crotone, that loss against Fiorentina, although the red card really kind of really ruined that. But like those are games that you have to get some points out of, and drawing 20 place Crotone is not gonna win you a title. Inter, we have seen in previous years that they've struggled to find the way to win those types of games, but now this year, they're making us and everyone else pay when they're beating teams 3-4-0, right? So that's the best team in the league has to do that. That's what you got to do to win. And kudos, as much as I don't want to say it, kudos to Conte for getting every inch out of his team. So we gotta sharpen up and get some goals. We just look so disorganized, I guess, hitting the attack. So
Absolutely. So speaking of our injury concerns, Pirlo gave an update on that as well, saying Arthur is still feeling pain and he's being evaluated day by day. Dybala hasn't recovered yet. McKennie has problems, but he's fighting through them because of our lack of depth at the moment. Morata and Kulusevski have both been unwell, but they should be available because they're improving. Ramsey's available, and Buffon will start in goal. And in addition to all of this, we already know Quadrado is sidelined, as well as Chiellini and Bonucci, and Rabiot out for accumulating a second yellow. So, with all that being said, I'll just dish out the predicted starting lineup, and you tell me, if you like it, what about it you like, what you want, what you would change, who you would see. I mean, there's not much to choose from, in my opinion, but um, so the prediction is Buffon and net, as Pirlo stated, Danilo, Delict, Demiral, Alexandro, Chiesa, Bentancur, Ramsey, and McKennie, and Kulusevski and Ronaldo up front in a 4-4-2.
I'm not completely shocked that that's probably what it's going to be like. If I had my opinion, I probably would give Alexandro a bit of a rest. I know he missed some time with COVID and an injury, but he has played a lot recently. I would have given Fabrata a go just to see if he can do anything against Crotone. Alexandro, he's as we've discussed before, he's very hit or miss. One game he'll do something great, and then the next game and a half or 2 games he'll just go completely invisible. With that, I'm also kind of surprised no Bernardeschi on the left side instead of Ramsey, and then play Bentancur with McKennie in the middle. That's probably would have been my preferred. Just because I don't see Ramsey playing a full 90 without, either being invisible or picking up some kind of injury. And
so you would prefer Ramsey in a wider position as opposed to in the pivot?
Well, see, when it comes to that, I feel like Ramsey is not very good when it comes to the defensive phase. He's creative, trying to find the link to the forwards going. So he's more of an attacking midfielder in my mind.
Yeah.
So that's why I would start with more of a Bentancur McKennie duo, pivot in the middle, and then let Bernardeschi play off the right because that's where he's more familiar. Let Bernardeschi play off the left. Yes, because that's where he's more comfortable. I don't know, because I don't want to leave Bentancur and Ramsey in the middle. Them two, I just feel like even though it's Crotone, they probably will get dispossessed defensively. But if that's what Pirlo thinks is good to go, then I guess that's what it's going to be. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I wouldn't be fully opposed to it, although McKennie in a 2, kind of worries me. I think his weakest point is his passing. I don't associate him with being precise and accurate with his passing and being so comfortable on the ball. I did make the comparison, both good and bad in that sense, to Vidal. So Vidal at Juve was surrounded by Pogba, Marquisio, Pirlo, guys who are very comfortable with the ball on their feet and creative in that sense and accurate. And I feel it's similar at Inter. And actually, Conte finally dropped Vidal for better ball playing in Eriksen and more creativity in that sense. and then you have Brozovic and Barella. So he reminds me of Vidal in that sense. I really wish we would do like a 3-man mid. And that's, we've spoken offline about that multiple times and things like that. So I understand completely, the potential holes that Ramsey and Bentancur can leave in that middle. And, we don't really know how fit Ramsey is in general. And then, Bentancur just always scares me on the ball. He's just, boy, he's awful.
He's had a rough go this year, no doubt about it. I find it very strange how he looked really good last year under Sarri, and then this year it's just been like a complete 180. I would think he'd get better with the midfielder coach that knows everything about being a midfielder, and unless he's asking him to do too much and he's getting in his own head, I don't. It's tough to say, but it's kind of shocking to me. That's all.
Yeah, a lot of talk about, mentality. I mentioned this a few times on the previous few podcasts that I've put out already, where me and my brother, we just talk about, who really looks like they give a shit on the field, right? And like really care that, I'm playing for Juve type of thing. And, no one in the mid specifically, really strikes you like in that sense. The only guy really that looks obviously as besides Chiellini and those guys is Chiesa to me. Like this guy wants to put on, like he wants to sleep in his Juve jersey, like that. Like that's what it looks like when he comes on the field. And so I feel like we also speak about Locatelli, and I feel like it would be, and I don't know if it's because they're Italian, but I feel like he could bring that enthusiasm to the jersey and things like that. And I feel like it does make a difference because guys just look like they're not in it like
Absolutely.
at all. And Bentancur, Rabiot, like they just look like they're going through the motions all the time. And I don't know if it's because of their abilities or if they really just don't care. They're there to collect a paycheck.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like Ramsey and Rabiot, for me, for certain, making their $7.5 million a year, like they don't look like they have that motivation, or like, I'm at Juventus, I need to give it my all every game. And that's concerning. You can see it on the pitch, and you can see it even in like their face, their mental state. They just don't look like, we let in a goal. What are we going to do? Right. Let's try to get one back. Like you need some more urgency. And like you said, I see that in Chiesa all the time. Like, he wants to score. He wants to try to set someone up. He's always trying to do something. And I think if Locatelli does end up coming, I would think he would be very similar to Chiesa in that style, because maybe he's Italian, but I also believe, if I read correctly, he grew up a Juventus fan. So like that's like, his idol, his dream come true kind of thing. So you need more players with that kind of motivation, that kind of enthusiasm. I agree.
For sure. Say what you want about Khedira, but he looked to show that as well, especially early on when he arrived. And same like Matuidi, he was who he was, but this guy would never stop at least trying.
Definitely.
Before we move on from the lineup, I just want to hear your thoughts on, I mean, if Kulusevski and Morata are both fit, as Pirlo states, and they're improving and they'll be available, don't you think Morata should be on the field?
100%. He's the only real number 9, the real striker we have up top. And I think when he's fit and when he's starting, it just gives the team a whole different dynamic compared to Kulusevski, who's more used to cutting in off the wing. He likes to try to get creative, but then again, he has no focal point because Ronaldo's probably cutting it off the left wing. So you got two guys too far apart, and no one in the middle to kind of link them. What I wouldn't be opposed to playing Morata, Kulu, and Ronaldo on the left. It's kind of like a more of a less of a front three. I know many people and us have spoken about playing a 4-3-3. It maybe leave us a little exposed in the back defensively, especially on the counter. But I feel like it would help us create more opportunities going forward. But
But
uh,
surely Chiesa needs to be on the field, right?
that's another problem, right? So
Yeah.
who's going to sit um, is another issue, especially if you play a front three. You got Kulu and Chiesa playing the same side. So
No,
uh,
any day of the week, it would be Chiesa for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I agree. So it's a couple. You got a couple scenarios that you can try to work around. It's always good to have depth, but I think you got to find a formation that's able to suit the greater attacking players you have. When you got Kulu, who's not really a striker, playing as a striker, you're probably not going to get the best out of him, like we've seen with Dybala before him, and other players not playing in their preferred position. So it's not an easy task by Pirlo. I totally understand that, but he needs to maybe get the boys sparked a bit and try to figure something out.
Yeah. I just I don't get it if Morata is available. Why don't you go a 4-3-3? And I
Hmm.
feel like a 4-3-3 would be, beneficial for everyone. You can have McKennie, Bentancur, and Ramsey kind of with a free role.
Yeah.
Um, and then Morata, and then on the left, Ronaldo and Chiesa on the right. Um, so I don't know what Pirlo's obsession is with playing people out of position, but I feel like he doesn't get criticized enough for that, and could potentially, you know, be the reason why some of the results that have occurred.
Hmm.
Um, I see little talk about that, and I know that you kind of come into Pirlo's defense saying, at some point we have to blame the players, and I agree to a certain extent. I don't think
Yeah.
it's one or the other, but I've always believed that the coach prepares you with the routines, the tactics, where everyone should be at what point, how you should break the press and things like that. Like Conte is an expert at that.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean he has his flaws too. And not that I want Pirlo to be like Conte because he's very set in his ways, and
Hmm.
that bites him on the ass as well. Um, but at some point, the coach I think should prepare the team as well.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I know how we previously mentioned about like seeing the enthusiasm on the players. If we're losing and I still see enthusiasm and frustration on the players when we're losing, then I would be more critical of the coach. When I'm seeing players, Bentancur creating that first goal for Porto, and he's just kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. Then that's when I'm a little more critical of the players. So it falls on both. I agree, but something just doesn't look right. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the injuries, like we said, but still, we have a deep enough team where we should still be able to pull out results. So that's what's frustrating.
Yes, 100%.
Hmm.
And this is the perfect opposition where you expect that. We have enough talent, enough in our team, the depth, everything like that to beat Crotone. Like they have 12 points, they have like 3 wins and 3 draws or something like that. Um, but yeah, the last time we faced Crotone, like I said, 1-1 draw. A little bit of everything in the match. They got awarded a penalty kick from Bonucci brain fart, and Chiesa, the good and the bad, I guess, on his debut. A blistering a cross goal for Morata. Really simple tap in, put it on his foot essentially, and then he got, I guess, a questionable red card
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Um,
say.
and then Morata scored, but his toenails were offside, so unfortunate there. But speaking of the opposition, so do you know much about Crotone in general? I mean, I'm sure we're not tuning in every weekend to watch Crotone unless you have like Simi on your fantasy team or something.
I don't like. I've seen them a handful of times here and there. I watched them get dismantled by Milan less than a month ago, give or take. They look like they were organized until it came to defending. Then it was just a disaster. I know Adam Unas. I think he's on loan from, was it Napoli? Maybe he's looked
Yes.
like one of their lively attackers. He's got some pace, which can cause some problems for us for sure. But other than that, like this is a game you have to win. Like I don't know how else to say it. Like you just got to take advantage, regardless of how good or bad the opposition is. You gotta find some momentum, get some goals, and hopefully that boosts the team going forward in the next stretch of games.
Of course. I mean, for sure you have to respect the opponent, or else you just get embarrassed.
Hmm.
But this is, you got to break your ducks here.
Yeah.
Um, we've been struggling to score goals, like I mentioned, sixth in Serie A. Um, but Crotone last 12 points, 23 goals for, 52 goals against. So 52 goals against. And I was looking at, who they were able to get points from, and Juve being one of them. The rest was like Parma, Udinese,
Yeah.
Torino, Spezia, Benevento, and we're in that bunch, you know? Um, and that's just embarrassing. I don't care, about respecting your opposition at that point. That is embarrassing.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
they are set to employ a 3-4-2-1, I guess. It also looks like a back five, I think, when they defend. They play 39% of their possession, I guess, or their attack on the right side. And what Twitter wanted us to discuss a little bit is your thoughts on Salvatore Molina, which is their right-sided midfielder. I mean, I don't know too much about him, but from the little I've seen about him, is he's kind of like, as a um, other than Junior Messias, he's
Hmm.
their creative outlet. He's has one goal and four assists, and many of the action that come through him are, pinging that ball over the defense, and likes playing key passes in. Do you have any thoughts on him?
Yeah, just to add on to that, I know he was very like a focal point on the right hand side there, trying to get balls into whether it's Simi up top or I think D Carmine is now one of the options up top. So it
Mhm.
looks like he's kind of their go to guy, which might cause us problems because like we said, Alexandro on our left, like our opposing side. Um, one game he'll be great. One game he'll score an own goal. Like you don't know what you're gonna get from him. So
Yeah, yeah.
um, depending on Molina's pace, he might cause some problems for us, like we said. But like then again, you got to shut them down. There's like do whatever you have to do. There's no way you should be conceding, regardless, pretty much any goals against Crotone. One, like even one, is pushing it too much. But this is a game where we need to find our defensive stability because we looked a little off the past few games. So of course, be wary of the threat, especially on the counter. But you gotta shut them down. I don't think there's any other way to put that.
So another guy, I guess, that could cause us problems is Messias, as I mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
He's good. He's like tricky. He's a tricky player. He
Yeah.
likes to dribble, and he maintains like a good center of gravity when he's dribbling past players. So he could be tricky, but we're set to employ Delict and Demerol, everyone's favorite center backs, against Crotone. They've played 5 games together, won four, drew one,
Mhm.
and conceded only one goal together. Do you feel? I know we spoke about Alexandro. Do you feel like that should be enough against these guys?
Like I don't see how it can't be. Like these guys are, some of the best young center backs in the league. I know Demirel was started a little slow because he wasn't getting, a lot of time, came off some injuries, so on and so forth. But I think, the more these guys play together, the more um, stable and comfortable they should get with playing one another, kind of how, each other's tendencies. And then you also have Danilo on the most likely on the right hand side there, who's been sound defensively. Like we said, Macias, Molina, and Unis are probably the three main threats going forward. I think if we can contain those three, which we should be able to do with, we're not playing any slouches at the back really. We should be able to get them defensively because, as you mentioned, what was it, 52 goals they've conceded or something like that? Like that's like you gotta make them pay. There's no question about it.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me is, as we said, Alexandro. And I mean, Delict was kind of at fault too on that Porto goal. Like Porto, when I was doing like the pre-match, I was looking at what they like to do, and similarly, to Crotone, obviously not the same level of opposition,
Mhm.
but they also enjoyed, playing. They also enjoyed playing on the right side with most of
Yeah.
their play, and it came that goal essentially came from like 1-2s on that right side, and everyone was caught. So it really wouldn't shock me if the similar situation, and it wouldn't shock me if we tie 1-1. Like
Ah,
I mean, we're at that point again where I don't feel confident
yeah.
in Juve's ability to score. I feel more confident in their ability to defend or keep a low scoring game on the defensive end, but I actually don't feel like like something is going on up top. Morata hasn't scored in the last 324 minutes, Ronaldo 347 minutes, Kulusevski 308 minutes. And
Yeah.
Dybala is being Cassano and taking the year off. So I mean that's our attack, and it's and after Crotone we play Verona, who
Yeah.
I don't know their defensive stats, but they have been, I mean, they kind of dropped off and came down to earth, but they've been great defensively as well. So
They'll certainly be
what's
tougher than Crotone, I would think. They're no slouches either. I've watched a few of their games. They got some impressive like midfield wise. They're very they don't give up much. They're very tight, but let's focus on Crotone first and try to get past that. But yeah, like you said, um, Ronaldo has been very frustrating to watch, and I know some people might not like that answer that I just gave, but um, it just like he's trying to do everything by himself when everyone knows that he can't do it anymore. Like as much as Ronaldo's still great at what is it, 36, 37, whatever it is, like he's just not that type of player anymore to take on 5, 6 guys, defending. And he just needs to use, I know it's tough, he needs to use more of his teammates to get involved. He needs to bring more people involved, try to beat one, try to beat two, but look for an outlet. You know, Chiesa's always making runs from what I've noticed, try to find him. He's probably one of the fastest players on the pitch, and looking to get into dangerous areas. So you gotta use your team. It's the only way you're gonna try to create something probably out of nothing. So we'll see what happens.
Has he been your best player of the
I think
season?
I see. I might be a little biased because I was a big Chiesa fan before he even joined Juve, and I know lots of people thought he was overrated, overpriced. Fiorentina sucks, he sucks, whatever. But I think he's proven us all that he's not only skilled, but he's fast, he's creative. When you get him the ball, he's always looking to threaten and run at defenders, which for a few years now we haven't had any type of player that is always looking to take someone on, trying to run, trying to create.
We have, but he was mostly in J Medical in Douglas
Yes, and that,
Costa.
yes, very true. So he's not doing us much good,
Yeah,
laying on the therapy bed. But
yeah.
um, yeah, like Chiesa he's been important to us, and that away goal could against Porto could be huge. Coming back home, I just I've seen him being more consistent than both Ronaldo and Morata this year, which is not good. It's kind of it's not a good stat. But hopefully that changes tomorrow.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because we kind of know what we get from Morata in that sense. He's
Hmm.
very big on confidence. He's a confidence player,
Yeah.
and I think Pirlo actually said this a few, maybe 1 or 2 games ago, because of his form and how he looks out there, I guess. Um, and so, like we've stated, this game could be the game to get the ball rolling again,
Yeah.
for all of these players, which is why I wish, well, I don't know if this lineup, I think this lineup will be the one that he puts out tomorrow
Hmm.
with Kulusevski there, but I wish that Morata, could break his ducks in this match.
Hmm.
Although Kulusevski has proven um, that he can manage against weaker opponents, and he actually performs in that sense.
Hmm.
Although not being my favorite to watch.
Yeah. See, for me, like you mentioned, I'd rather have Murata starting, just solely based on the games that are coming up. You got Porto again, you got Lazio coming up, you have Verona. You're gonna need like Morata's, if he's fit, he's gonna be starting those games. Not most likely not Kulusevski. So you need your players going. You got to have them motivated and hopefully, not scored. Hopefully scored some goals in the meantime. If he's still goalless after the next few games, it's even more concerning than it already is. So
And hopefully, Dybala decides to, put on his boots this season at some point.
yeah,
All the talk of, I guess leading up to the game, first we thought, he would be ready for Porto, then turned out he didn't. He wasn't ready. And then, his knee's fine, and Pirlo said, his knee's actually not fine. So, it's a weird one, I
it
think,
is.
with him. And, at one point, I didn't even know that he had a knee injury. It was just like last week where he had gastroenteritis or something, and then he had COVID or this and that. I just, yeah,
It
I
just
don't
seems like
know.
one thing after another, and it's frustrating at this point because as even though he started the year not very well with COVID, and then he came back here and there and had that one good game against Milan where he helped us. He was pivotal in that win.
At one
Uh,
good pass.
yeah, that one decent half that he had, like, it's just frustrating because he's capable of doing things, but how many chances? As much as I love him, don't get me wrong, how many chances are we going to give this guy to prove himself? I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on the Dybala topic, and we spoke earlier today as well about him and his contract, and I think it's just time to move on.
It wouldn't
And
surprise me, to be honest, not at
yeah,
all. So I'm
well,
kind of waiting for it at this point. I just think it's not looking good for him. That's all I'm gonna say.
so in retrospect, are you for that Dybala-Lukaku swap? I saw that a little bit on the timeline today.
Yeah, I saw that as well. See, I don't think so because I know Lukaku has been great for Inter, but I think that has a large part of their formation and their system along with Conte. With us, with Sarri, and now Pirlo, like, who knows? He could have been the same one we saw at Man U, playing not how he's comfortable. Somehow Conte has turned him into a beast, and credit to them. But I don't know. I don't think I would have made that swap either. I don't know about you, but
I mean, at that point, I was like, "What are we doing? Like,
yeah,
we're
exactly.
giving this guy away." I understood the financial aspect of it, and that was probably mostly the reason why they were, tinkering, I guess, at the idea of it.
Mhm.
Um, but I agree with those who were saying Lukaku is kind of a product of Conte's
Yeah.
tactics. Um, he's like a perfect Conte striker. If we look at our Conte Juventus teams, like similar to Lorente in that sense.
Yes.
Obviously, not the same player, and more mobile for sure.
Mhm.
Lukaku is, but that hold up play, linking up with a number 10 ish second striker,
Mhm.
um, definitely profiting off Conte's tactics for sure. Although
Definitely.
I think he would also benefit from, I guess, what Pirlo's trying to do as well. Having wanted Dzeko apparently a lot, and a target man like that,
It's true.
he could have maybe, but definitely, you can't see him under Sorry for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and at that point, uh, someone made the point. I think it was Luca on the last one. Kulusevski was, I think, a part of Sari's plans, a
Mhm.
player for Sari when we purchased him. So, you know, I'm that's just like a crazy amount of money for him, in my opinion. Uh, and a lot of people may think that I really don't like Kulusevski. Not the case. I think he has glimpses, but I just, you know, you go and get Kulusevski, and then you go and get Chiesa.
Mhm.
Not that I don't like Chiesa, because I definitely, I'm not right there with you on he was my guy since Fiorentina. Like, I will definitely not lie about that. I thought he was too inconsistent, and his finishing lacked, in my opinion, at Fiorentina. but he's actually showing that we can rely on him
Yeah,
as a finisher now. And the best thing to be proven wrong in a
exactly.
beneficial way, right?
Yeah,
So I was never against his price tag because I think the actual financial aspect of the deal, being broken up into loans and things like that was
yep.
brilliant. And I love when Juve does things like that. And the same with the Murata deal.
Hmm.
Um, so I wasn't really against his 60 mil price tag
Hmm.
because of how it's broken up. But I'm not sure if you felt, this is the guy coming from Parma in Kulusevski.
See, I was a little more optimistic for Kulusevski when they signed him. Like was watching his highlights or even watching Parma last year. He was their best player by a large margin, and like some of the great plays he made, cutting it off that right side, and finishing. He scored some great goals. I just feel, although he hasn't been able to show us exactly what he's been able to do, maybe that's because of the way Pirlo's asking him to play or where he's asking him to play. I think, like I hope I'm right that
Well,
he
where
is
would you
just.
play? Where would you play him? Because
See,
I feel
that's
like he doesn't fit in, and this is why I really don't understand. Like, the management buying him. Like, was he supposed to be a false nine? Like, I'm not really sure.
yeah,
In
that's
terms
that's the
of
question, because if you had him, then you didn't need Kesa unless they have them. You can play both, but someone's gonna have to play on the left. Like I feel
yeah,
like you can't keep Ronaldo forever as much as people love him, and he can't play every game clearly. So you try someone on the left. I know Chiesa's played there a little bit, but if you're playing a more of a 4-3-3 and they don't have to defend as much, maybe Chiesa can do a little better on the left, cutting in off the left, or vice versa, Kulusevski playing on the left. Like I wouldn't mind seeing that at some point to see what they can do. Unless you play Kulusevski kind of behind the striker, depending on your formation that you're playing, I can see him playing there, but
mhm,
he's definitely not a right midfielder or a right wing back, depending on your formation. So, and he's definitely not a striker, as we've seen.
yeah,
It's
I
tough to get them. Yeah, it's tough to get them all on the same starting 11, but I think there's ways to go about that if you kind of use them to their strengths.
I
So
mean, I guess mold him into what Ramsey is supposed to be.
yes,
I think
exactly.
I think like I mean, how many games has Ramsey even played for us? It's probably time to move on as
Agreed.
well.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they'll find a suitor. Like at this point, we've attached ourselves to players who are not even gonna get us a few million at this point,
Hmm.
and we've invested like 7.5 wages to him and like Rabiot, and who's gonna want to pay that type of money? No one, right? And we said this about Dybala. um as soon as like Juve dishes out that money on a long contract, they're not going to want to leave,
Hmm.
because they know that they're not going to get that money elsewhere, right? So
Yeah. See,
it's yeah,
Ramsey will
go
be
ahead.
tough. The only place he can go is to one of the EPL teams, maybe back to Arsenal, but that would be even probably not likely.
Yeah.
Um, but even still, what EPL team's going to want to place, pay 7 million, 7.5 million for him? He's fit half of the season. So that's going to be tough. But like you said, for me, I would rather move him than Rabiot. I feel at least Rabiot's a little younger. He's fit a little more often. He can offer something a little different. I know
Mm.
some people have mixed feelings about Rabiot, but when he's good, he's not terrible. So like I can live with that off the bench, maybe not starting all the time, but yeah, it'll definitely be tough to move contracts like that, as we've seen over the past couple of years. So
Ever since the COVID like reboot, when we came back after last season after the shutdown, Rabiot was like, if not the best player for us, like one of the best players
mhm,
for us. And I feel like he has more, I guess, talent that I would bet on,
yep,
um, as opposed to Bentancur. And Ramsey, I feel like he's a special player, and he has unique characteristics that none of our midfielders have. He's supposed to generate goals,
yes,
both by himself, meaning he is supposed to score the goals, and he's supposed to be the guy to create them. He's the only, I guess, midfielder that goes, past the defensive lines and in and
Mhm.
about and in those little spaces, making those runs. But like he's just not like it's like he's not even our player because of how little he's contributed.
Yeah.
And just when he finds his a little bit of form, his injury
Injury.
has an
Yeah.
injury or something. Uh,
It's yeah, he's another frustrating one. Like he has the skill to be influential in games that need to be broken down that are tight defensively. But if he's not fit to play, then what's the point of having a player like that?
Which is
Uh,
why I was so for Chiesa because he was
yes.
essentially replacing Douglas Costa. And I was like, well, I mean, it's like we don't even have Douglas Costa because
Hmm.
whenever it's a big Champions League match and like he's the guy who's going to give us that creative spark that, Europe, you need guys like that.
Yeah.
Excuse me, guys like that in Europe. Um, and so I was like, you know what? We're replacing him with Chiesa. It's a good, it's decent to bet on a guy like that. But what I don't understand and what I wanted to bring up when we were talking about Kulusevski Chiesa is, if you have a guy like Kulusevski, why do you get a guy like Chiesa as
Ah,
opposed to, I guess, reinforcing the midfield,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Ah, that's a tough one. Like I feel although they play similar positions, I feel like they're very different in their styles.
They
Kiesa's
are
more,
100%.
yeah. So I feel like that's what I mean. If you can get them both playing on opposite sides, I feel like that would give you something very different on both sides, which could be, tough for defenders to face. Kiesa's more direct, likes the continuous running, and Kulusevski's more of a, kind of slide in and out, try to trick you, use his size to his benefit. I just I don't know if there's an actual plan to have them both or to play them both at the same time. I don't think they even know what the plan is. But I guess I think that Pirlo really liked Chiesa, and that was one of the reasons why they brought him over. And then Kulusevski was kind of just like, oh, I'm here too. So now you got to figure out what to do with both. I don't know.
I just feel like I don't know anymore with this team and like if it's, the personnel or the coach or a mixture of both. I try to give, Pirlo the benefit of the doubt,
Hmm.
although and it looked like, he was learning and he was showing us that he can be adaptable and that he can grow from his mistakes when you saw, you know, um what he did against Roma and how in the reverse fixture it was a total opposite and they were just, it was a matter of time before they actually beat us that game.
Hmm.
Luckily, it ended 2-2, but and he said that he, in the reverse fixture, now we did it to them type of thing.
Yeah.
And it looked like, he was turning that page and growing from his mistakes and then we kind of go back to this, knowing Porto hasn't conceded one goal at home in Europe, being in a group with Manchester City, who has far more weapons than Juventus will ever have. Um,
Definitely.
and then you just play this football that just exposes you. And I know we had, like little breakdowns amongst individuals, but I just don't get this 75% possession and nothing to show for it. I mean, why wouldn't you do what has been working? And I guess that's frowned upon in Europe, to play that pragmatic football. Um, but it seemed to have been working. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know your thoughts. Like I said, I'm more ugly FC as opposed to sexy FC because we're trying to be that sexy FC, and same with Saudi, trying to implement this style of football, and we barely created chances,
Hmm.
which was the same. Like it doesn't make sense to me where uh, people are okay with last season when we won 4-3 against Napoli
Hmm.
and we threw the kitchen table at them and people are okay with getting scored on three times and almost having the game slip just for being attacking. Like I just don't get that concept.
No, I'm with you. That's why, like, I saw a lot of hate for Allegri. I know this is going back a bit, but like he was able to bring home results. Like isn't that all that matters? And like even if you're playing, you're kind of containing possession, but you're being, I guess, cautious against Porto. Like if you're taking home a result, a positive result, does it really matter how you're playing? Like I feel like um, Madrid might not be a good example, but they were able to win year after year, and not all of their wins were pretty. Like you just, at the end of the day, a win is a win. It doesn't matter how you come about it. And I think Pirlo got some things wrong against that Porto game. Napoli was a little different. I feel like that was just unlucky, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But again, we didn't create much going forward. But when it came to Porto, I feel like he just didn't. Either they weren't motivated, or they weren't on. Like the players and the coach were on the same page on what was supposed to happen with the press, what was supposed to happen in the offensive zone. Like it just didn't look. Something didn't look right. And I don't know. Maybe if Pirlo relies on Artur to help with that midfield, maybe if he had different players in the midfield, everyone would kind of feel a little more comfortable, a little more progressive. Like it's tough to say, but I feel that if Pirlo had more of players or weapons in the midfield that he that he wants, like maybe we'll be able to see a bit of a difference. But that's wishful thinking at this point.
But then at that point, you could argue that, if Sadi had some better players that he likes to fit his system and so forth, he could have done this, he could have done that, I feel like one guy who has worked with what he had and didn't complain is Allegri. And instead of implementing, his way of doing things, he tried to fit, what can I get out of the players that I have?
Right. Pirlo, like Allegri did, has to get the best out of what he has. At this point, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change this year. And then next year is a different story. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I just don't understand why Allegri gets so much hate, and
I agree.
why. I guess it's just all these hipsters, with Sarri and Pirlo.
For sure, like you can't expect Pirlo to perform miracles right away. I don't know, like that's just me, but I was a fan of Allegri, and I guess maybe his time did come up. Maybe some issues in the dressing room and whatever. I get that, but he definitely didn't get enough praise as he probably rightfully deserved. Look what look what he was able to do with what he had. And now I know, compare 2017 to now, I just feel like that team had more unity, more heart. They played for the jersey, they played for each other. Now it just kind of looks like Ronaldo's playing for Ronaldo, and things aren't going right, and everyone's kind of just dropping their head. There looks like there's no fight, there's no coercion going. Like maybe that's what I see. I don't know, but it doesn't look the same, regardless of the coach and the personnel. The team does not look anywhere close to being a Champions League finals team.
I think we've moved, I guess, further away from relying on Ronaldo this season, as opposed to, last season. I felt like we were very reliant on, either Ronaldo or Dybala to create one piece of magic, as opposed to, this season we have guys that are stepping up like Chiesa and Morata, but the problem is that we still are reliant on the few, which obviously you throw Ronaldo into that, Chiesa, Morata, and then, McKennie's been giving us here and there. And then that's pretty much it. So it seems like, we moved away from that, and finally someone else scored other than Ronaldo in a knockout in the Champions League. But I see what you mean in terms of, the guy's still taking free kicks, and no one has the balls to tell him, like, just stop for one. Like,
I don't even want to start that topic, man. It gets me so angry.
Take the long ones. I'm all for him taking the long ones because of his technique and how, he likes the ball to dip and things like that. But anything closer up, I mean, at this point, who would even take them?
Honestly, like, I know this kind of sounds maybe not the greatest, but I'd honestly rather have Bernardeschi take some of the free kicks.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
no, I agree with that.
It's frustrating. Or even Cuadrado, as much as I'm, not, and I get hate on this for not being Team Cuadrado, like sometimes he can deliver a good ball in off a corner, off a cross, but like you're at least try to get it on target, try to get a corner out of it, try to get a deflection, something. Like if you're hitting the wall every time, like when are you gonna take the hint to stop? I don't know. That whole topic
Pirlo
gets me angry.
Pirlo apparently made a comment in regards to that today. I don't know if you saw on Twitter that he's practicing Ronaldo in training, and he's getting
Mm-hmm.
closer, and he's gonna score
Okay.
off the free kick, and it's just it's wild because you're the best, like arguably the best player in the world. Why do you want to do that? Like you know
Like, doesn't it
you
make him look bad? Doesn't he feel
yeah,
like he's looking bad in
yeah,
front of
that's what I
people?
mean,
Like,
right? Like you want we all know you want to be the best at everything.
mm-hmm,
So, why would you do something that, you're not so great at? Like in his early years, like the technique that I mentioned, in the EPL,
mm-hmm.
he had his fair share of free kick goals, but
Yeah,
he
it's
needs to
especially when
just
you're in a good spot, like you're 20, 25 yards out, like, and you're still hitting the wall, like you're wasting a great opportunity. That's
yeah.
that's it's plain and simple.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, about the Crotone match, so what I want to see is, we're gonna get that obviously possession football,
Mm-hmm,
and I don't mind it against a weaker opponent. We should be controlling and taking the game to a weaker opponent. We shouldn't be sitting back, and I guess at times, in contrast to Allegri, there were certain games where you ask yourself, why are we just sitting back? Like we should be dominating this game, right?
mm-hmm,
So for sure, what I expect and what I hope to see is breaking our scoring ducks. At least a 2-0 win is like you need to get the attack going. You need to get the gears going, um, and look more in sync, and take the game to them. I hope that we don't concede. However, I feel like they can nick one, or a penalty. Like I
mm-hmm.
can see Alexandro giving a penalty away, or Demiral. He's pretty rash at times.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, what do you want to see?
Yeah, I want to see some progressive passing. I want to see, not moving sideways and backwards. I want to see some, creativity going forward. I know that's a lot easier said than done, but I feel like we need to not force, but be smart when we're moving forward and try to create things. And again, like you said, we need to score some goals. I want to see some goals. Ideally, a 2-3 nothing win would be great. I wouldn't be surprised if Crotone managed to score one. It would not shock me at all. But I feel like, we got to get Ronaldo going. If Morata starts or comes off the bench, we got to get him going because, like you said, he's a very, his form is very hit or miss. He's very hot or cold. When he's bad, he's bad. When he's great, he's scoring, 2, 3 a game, whatever. But yeah, I want to see us moving forward as a unit and not just, Ronaldo and Morata trying to do everything by themselves. With bringing in Chiesa, we got to get the midfield involved a little and try to bring some motivation going forward to the next few games.
So what you're saying is we need Fagioli?
Honestly, I'm not against him getting some minutes. I know, like maybe not starting, but I would be totally fine with him getting half an hour just to see what he's like. He's definitely a lot more um, attacking minded than Bentancur is. He's probably a little better with his feet from what I've seen, especially from what we've seen with Bentancur this season. Obviously, you can't expect a young kid like that just to come in and drop a 90-minute game and play lights out. But I'd be okay with him getting an opportunity. So we'll see.
I'm with you there. Some people are suggesting him from the start as opposed to Ramsey. I actually think, Ramsey, if he's fit and he does start, that he can be a key player,
Mm-hmm.
not only in this match, like I said earlier, I think, he has unique characteristics, getting behind the defenders himself, making those runs. The problem is, sometimes we have no one to actually find him. And not
Yeah.
only him, like you mentioned, Chiesa is always making those runs. Ronaldo makes runs in, but we don't have that player who I guess takes enough of a risk, and we
Yeah.
haven't had that style or player in the past few seasons. And it feels like, is this what the coach is saying to do? Pass the ball back or to the side, and even like shooting outside the box, we rarely see.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're right there, shoot the ball.
Hmm.
And you
Agreed.
ask again, like, are they being told to recycle the ball as opposed to, being more direct? But I do feel like Chiesa will have a say as well
Hmm.
in how far, not only how far we go in the season, or match by match, because I feel like he's our most inventive player.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, this match for sure, you have to just pepper the net.
Yes, absolutely. I think we need some midfielders that can actually, aren't afraid to have a goal from outside the box. Like, I don't know what it is with uh, Bentancur or Rabiot, even Artur. Like, no one, they're not comfortable from shooting outside the box. Like, at some point, you got to give it a chance. Like, we saw with even Danilo, a game against Sassuolo. Like, that was a great strike. It doesn't hurt to try, especially when you're just trying to find something, catch them off guard, catch the goalie off position, something. But yeah, I think I'm sure it goes without saying, but we need a little more creativity in the middle of the pitch, and I think that's something that they'll definitely look into adjusting in the summer.
Yeah, as long as we have Bentancur, McKennie, and Rabiot in the mid, you gotta keep looking, because you're not
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
get it there.
Creativity is not between those three, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I'm going with a 2-0 Juve win. What are you going with?
I'm going to say 2-1. I think it's going to be a little too close. A third goal would be great, but for some reason I feel like we're going to let in a sloppy one for some reason, and hopefully we can at least find two, if not more.
And I'm gonna go with Ronaldo being, I guess, I want to say maybe the man of the match, or getting the 2 goals. But I feel like the only way he does is if Chiesa and Ramsey are at the heart of everything.
Hmm.
Who are your key players in your 2-1 win?
As you mentioned, I think Ramsey, if he is fit and does start, I think he will be influential in getting some of that creativity going forward. We've seen him trying to pick a little pass or trying to make a creative little run to create space for Ronaldo or Chiesa, whoever it is. I'm going to say Ronaldo with one, and I want to say Morata gets the second. I would like Chiesa to maybe pot another one in there too, but an assist, a lot of he has a great touch off the wing, finding a little cross in the middle. So I think Chiesa will be influential, um, and I'll go Ramsey as well. I feel like this is his game to finally show us what he can do. When he's not injured. So
You tell us a one-liner hot take, to get everyone engaged, or try to, and keep the conversation going about Juventus, in terms of anything, management, Pirlo, uh, Serie A,
mm,
Champions League, anything. What's been on your mind? You're about to hit that send button on Twitter, and you're just like, I don't want the heat today.
um, I have mentioned this before, but it's still, I feel like it's a hot take because people don't take it very well. I'm gonna say we move away from Ronaldo this summer. That's what I think we should do, and I think we need to do it. But I don't know. I don't know if that's really a hot take, but yeah, well, yeah, I'm
Even
sure it'll stir some controversy.
even if he, I guess, were to take a pay cut, you still think?
Realistically, how much of a pay cut do you think he'd take? I don't think enough for us to manage to keep him and improve the team where it needs to be improved. It just, for me, if he's unless he's willing to take like 7, 10, 15 million dollars, which is less than half is what he's making now, I just don't see it happening.
So that would be the way. I guess the only way, if you were management, you would keep Ronaldo, is if he's on 15 mil.
Yes, even that is, it depends how long he wants them to stay. Maybe a year. Two is even too long in my opinion. So 60 million, in wages, before tax. is just too much for one player when your team is leaking in other areas, in my opinion.
It's hard to disagree with that. You just really feel like it's, mission failed at that point, though. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for
Thank you for
coming on.
having me.
Everyone who's, I guess, tuned in, subscribe to the YouTube channel reJUVEnation. You can follow me on Twitter at Monica Loriola. And what's your at, Daniel?
It's Daniele Luch, or just type in my name, Daniel Lucci, and yeah, there I am.
And you'll see a lot about Chiesa there. So if you're a Chiesa fan,
Absolutely.
definitely follow Daniel. And I mean, he has great takes anyway. So thanks for joining me, and Forza Juve.
Thank you.